So, for this week's video discussion post, we're tackling a massive topic in organizational behavior and management. We're going to be talking about leadership today. Specifically, we're looking at why it is so incredibly important for a leader to actually have a clear, well-defined vision. I'll be honest with you guys, before I started reading the materials or even digging into this module, I used to think the word vision was just total corporate lingo, corporate fluff. It feels like one of those buzzwords that just executives throw around in boardrooms, or something you see printed in a shiny font on a motivational poster in the office hallway, usually with some picture of a mountain peak or soaring eagle, right? It always felt a little fake or tacky. It's a cool slogan, but what does that actually mean when you're on the ground doing real work? But when you break that down, what a vision actually does mean in a real world environment, whether you're managing a sports team, leading a project in the classroom, or running some sort of department, let's say within a healthcare setting, you realize that a leader without a vision is basically steering a ship without a rudder. You're moving, sure, but you have absolutely no control where you're going to land. When we look at how a clear vision impacts a workplace, it really comes down to three massive pillars: team motivation, overall direction, and just daily decision making. Let's start with motivation. If a leader just walks into the room every single day and says, all right, team, here's the checklist, fill out this form, log your hours, clear this database, queue, see you tomorrow. Nobody's going to care about the work. People will show up because they need a paycheck, and obviously they need money, but they aren't motivated. They aren't invested. A clear vision gives people a reason to care about the boring, repetitive, mundane parts of their day, because it connects those tiny little tasks to a much larger, meaningful goal. It answers the question of, why does my tedious paperwork actually matter in the big picture? Second, a vision provides, concrete direction. Without it, you have a group of individuals rather than a cohesive team. Every single person on that team is going to interpret the company's goals in their own unique way, which means everyone is pulling in slightly different directions. It creates accidental friction. And then finally, it completely dictates decision making. When a crisis hits, and let's be real, crisis is coming all the time. They always hit. It's inevitable. Or when you have to make, let's say, a tough phone call, or just a tough call in general, a clear vision can kind of act as like your internal compass. It almost makes the tough decisions for you, because you can just step back, look at the options, and ask, which of these choices actually gets us one step closer to our ultimate goal? And if it doesn't align with the vision, the answer is just an automatic no. To see how this plays out in the real world, I want to talk about a leader I genuinely admire. A lot of times when people think of visionary leaders, they automatically point to tech founders like Steve Jobs or some sort of famous politician or legendary sports coach. But I wanted to look at someone whose vision completely revolutionized the fields of public health and global medicine, Dr. Paul Farmer. He was an incredible physician and anthropologist who co-founded an international nonprofit called Partners in Health. If you've never read his work or heard his story, his entire life's vision was beautifully simple but totally radical. His vision was that healthcare is a fundamental right, and the poorest, most vulnerable people in the world deserve the exact same high quality, cutting edge medical care as the wealthiest people living in major cities. Now, why is that a vision and not just a nice thought? Because back when he started, the standard global health strategy for poor countries was giving them good enough care. People argued that it was too expensive or too complicated to treat complex diseases like, tuberculosis or HIV in places like rural Haiti or Rwanda in Africa. They thought basic first aid was the best anyone could do. Dr. Paul Farmer just completely rejected that. He believed in treating a patient in a mud-walled clinic with the exact same advanced aggressive medicine you'd get at the top-tier Harvard-affiliated hospital in Boston. He called this the equity imperative. This vision entirely shaped the way he led and inspired everyone around him. He didn't sit in his comfortable office in Massachusetts dictating policies or typing up memos. He was on the ground, hiking for hours through mountainous terrain in rural villages just to check on a single patient, showing his team exactly what that uncompromising vision looked like in practice. His leadership style wasn't built on authority or power. It was built on a concept called accompaniment. I have a hard time saying that word, obviously, which basically means you're just walking side by side with the people that you're serving and the people that you're leading for as long as it takes. When his medical staff, his students, and his donors saw that he was completely consumed by this vision, it raised the bar for absolutely everyone. It created this infectious energy. It inspired top-tier doctors and nurses to leave incredibly comfortable, high-paying corporate hospital jobs to go work in this underfunded remote clinics. They did it because they wanted to be part of a mission that actually meant something to them. It is proof that when a leader's vision is rooted in a deep, authentic purpose, people will willingly work through incredible hardships because they believe in the destination. Now let's look at the flip side, because we've all experienced it. Have you ever been part of a group where the leader has absolutely no clear vision? Yes, and honestly, it's kind of draining, frustrating, and it can just kind of throw everything off. A while back, I was involved in a project, and the person who was put in charge was technically qualified on paper, but they were a manager in name only. They were great at fast tracking deadlines, but they didn't have a core unifying vision for what the final project should look like, or nor did they set standard for how we were going to get there. The effect this had on our group's cohesion was an absolute disaster, because the leader didn't map out a clear path. There were sort of two separate teams forming within our own team. 2 or 3 people thought we should focus entirely on one specific outcome. And then another couple people thought we should go a completely different route. And the leader just sat back and said, yeah, whatever you guys think is best. It was a total nightmare. Our productivity and performance was low. We spent weeks going in circles, arguing over basic details because there was no plan to resolve our disagreements. Our goals kept shifting every week depending on who complained the loudest or felt the most stressed that day. But the absolute worst part was what it did to our morale. People were totally checked out. We stopped putting in extra effort. We stopped collaborating with each other, and everyone just started doing the bare minimum because we knew that whatever hard work we put in would probably get change thrown out or rendered useless the next week, where the project shifted towards a different direction just again. It really taught me that a leader who tries to please everyone by having no specific vision ends up leading a team that achieves absolutely nothing. It's a fast track to severe workplace burnout, resentment, and total operational chaos. When you think about the contrast between a visionary leader like Dr. Farmer and a visionless leader, you start to realize that a leader's vision eventually becomes the organization's culture. If a leader has a vision that values speed over everything else, the culture becomes fast-paced, high-stress, and sometimes sloppy. If the vision values perfection at all costs, the culture can become terrified of making mistakes, which then completely kills innovation. So as a leader, you aren't just creating a goal for the next fiscal quarter or the next project deadline. You're literally designing the emotional and social environment that your team has to live in for 40 or 50 hours a week. That is a massive responsibility. If your team doesn't know what they are building towards, they feel disposable, like kind of a cog in a machine. But when a leader explicitly states the vision and then repeatedly proves that they are willing to defend that vision, it does create psychological safety. The team knows exactly where the boundaries are, they know what their success looks like, and they know that their leader has their back as long as they're moving towards that goal together. So that brings me back to, the core assignment question. If I were leading a team today, knowing what I know about good leadership, bad leadership, and the psychological impact of a bad manager, what would my personal leadership vision be? If I were to step into a leadership or administrative role right now, my ultimate vision would be to cultivate a high-performing team where operational excellence explicitly meets total personal fulfillment. I know that sounds a little bit wordy, but let me break it down exactly and what that looks like in practice, because I refuse to let my vision just kind of be like an empty vision, To me, this vision is built on 3 non-negotiable core values that I would prioritize over everything else. The first value is radical transparency and psychological safety. I want to lead a team where there are absolutely 0 hidden agendas or secret metrics. If a system is broken, we talk about it openly. If an employee makes a mistake, they should feel completely safe to admit it, because they know my reaction won't be to yell or point fingers or play the blame game. Instead, our focus as a team will be strictly on fixing that system that allowed the mistake to happen in the first place. The second value for me is continuous personal and professional growth. I firmly believe in the philosophy that a true leader's vision or true leader's job isn't to create a bunch of loyal followers, it's to actively develop other leaders. I would make it a priority to give my team members the exact tool, advanced training, trust, and autonomy that they need to make decisions and grow in their own right. Even if that means they eventually do outgrow my team and move on to bigger and better opportunities elsewhere, seeing that they succeeded will then bring me success. The third, and honestly the most important value for me personally, is holistic well-being. I love working hard. I am a hard worker. I do value that. And I love seeing a team crush its targets, break records, and be the best in their field. But I absolutely 100% refuse to believe that a team or employees have to sacrifice their personal happiness, mental health, or family lives to be successful. A leader who expects their staff to constantly answer emails at 10 p.m., ruin their weekends with extra tasks, or burn themselves to the ground just to hit a corporate number is a leader who is failing. My vision is to create a culture where we work incredibly hard, efficiently, and smart during our actual working hours, but where the personal time, boundaries, and rest are fiercely, aggressively respected. People do their highest quality work when they're happy, rested, and fulfilled in their personal lives, not when they're stressed to the breaking point, or running solely on caffeine. The outcomes that I would prioritize wouldn't just be numbers on a spreadsheet. Obviously, we'd hit our targets, but my ultimate metrics for success would be low turnover, high everyday morale, seeing my team members step up to the higher management roles because they felt supported enough to take creative risk. Of course, having this beautiful vision inside my head doesn't mean anything if I don't know how to properly communicate it to the people I'm leading. I would not just type up a massive boring email on day one and attach a PDF and expect everyone to memorize it. Instead, I would communicate this vision through consistent daily alignment and actions. In our very first team meeting, I laid out clearly and simply, and I would open the floor for their feedback because I want to see I want them to see their own personal goals reflected in the vision. But more importantly, I'd bring it up during our regular work. When we review a tough week, maybe I'd ask the team, did our processes this week protect our work-life balance, or did we slip up? When we deal with a failure, I'd remind them, hey, remember our core value of transparency? It's figure out how the system failed, not how the person failed. By constantly intentionally tying our everyday boring actions back to those core values, the vision stops being a random slogan on the wall and becomes the actual breathing culture of the team. Anyways, that's just, my deep dive into my leadership vision. I think it's truly the difference between just managing a checklist of tasks and actually inspiring a group of people to build something meaningful together. Thank you all for listening.